from JBS Studios in Greater New York, this is the JBS News Update with Teisha Bader.
I'm Teisha Bader with the JBS News Update for Thursday, May the 10th, 2018. Some 20 rockets were fired late last night by Iranian forces in Syria at Israel. The rockets targeted IDF bases in the Golan Heights. 4 of them were intercepted by the Iron Dome missile defense system, and the rest fell short of Israel, landing in Syrian territory. There were no injuries on the Israeli side. In response, Israel hit over 50 Iranian targets in Syria. IDF spokesperson Ronen Manelis called the airstrikes one of the greatest operations of the Israel Air Force in the past decade. He said of the Iranian targets, the Quds force paid a heavy price. And Israeli Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman said this morning that the IDF had destroyed nearly all of Iran's military infrastructure sites in Syria, and once again warned Iran that any action against Israel will be met with the greatest force. War Monitor, the Britain-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, reported that 23 fighters, including 5 Syrian regime troops and 18 other allied forces, were killed in the Israeli airstrikes. The Syrian army later claimed only 3 fighters were killed. The United States expressed its support for Israel. The White House press secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders today said the Iranian regime's deployment into Syria of offensive rocket and missile systems aimed at Israel is an unacceptable and highly dangerous development for the entire Middle East. She said Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps bears full responsibility for the consequences of its reckless actions. Britain and Germany shared a similar sentiment. Spokesman for British Prime Minister Theresa May told reporters, "We condemn Iran's attack on Israel. Israel has every right to defend itself." He added, "We call on Iran to refrain from any further attacks and for calm on all sides." A spokesperson for Germany's foreign ministry called the Iranian attacks on Israel a serious provocation that we strongly condemn. As we have always emphasized, it said, Israel has a right to self-defense, adding that at the same time, it is crucial that there is no further escalation. The French foreign ministry said France had an unwavering commitment to Israel's security and that it condemns any attempt to undermine it, also calling on both sides to show restraint. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov called for dialogue between Israel and Iran. Support for Israel was also heard from the Arab Gulf country of Bahrain. Foreign Minister Khalid bin Ahmed Al Khalifa wrote on Twitter today that so long as Iran uses its forces and missiles to try and destabilize the region, it is the right of any country in the region, including Israel, to defend itself by destroying sources of danger. In other news, Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said the Canadian government will formally apologize for turning away a ship full of Jewish refugees who had fled Nazi Germany. The MS St. Louis set sail in 1939 from Hamburg, Germany, with some 907 German Jews on board. It was denied entry to a number of countries seeking asylum, including the U.S., Cuba, and Canada, and was sent back to Europe, where 250 of the passengers were ultimately killed during the Holocaust. Trudeau said at a March of the Living event this week that when Canada denied asylum to those passengers, it not only failed them, but also their descendants and community. He said an apology in the House of Commons will not rewrite this shameful chapter of our history, but it is our collective responsibility to acknowledge this difficult truth, learn from this story, and continue to fight against anti-Semitism every day as we give meaning to the solemn vow, never again. President Donald Trump signed the Justice for Uncompensated Survivors today, or JUST Act, into law yesterday. The act requires the U.S. State Department to report to Congress on what steps countries in Europe have taken to compensate Holocaust survivors for assets stolen by the Nazis. The bipartisan legislation was introduced in the Senate by Democratic Senator Tammy Baldwin of Wisconsin and Republican Senator Marco Rubio of Florida, and in the House by Democrat Joseph Crowley of New York and Republican Chris Smith of New Jersey. And Smith, by the way, is also co-sponsoring the United States Israel Security Assistance Authorization Act together with Floridians Republican Ileana Ros-Lehtinen and Democrat Ted Deutsch. The act passed the House Foreign Affairs Committee yesterday. It enhances military cooperation between the U.S. and Israel, as well as funding. Smith, noting the escalating threats from Iranian forces in Syria and from terror group Hamas in Gaza, said faced with such a constellation of fanatical enemies, Israel cannot spare a moment's vigilance, and neither can we for the sake of our close friend. Ros-Lehtinen said our bill provides Israel with at least some peace of mind, knowing that the United States will continue to stand beside the Jewish state and that we will continue to seek ways to strengthen our bilateral relationship. Israeli company Velostrada has been acquired by Google. Velostrada is a cloud migration startup founded in 2014. It specializes in helping companies move their internal corporate infrastructure to cloud providers. According to Google Cloud's Vice President of Engineering, Eyal Manor, Velostrada will work out of Google's Tel Aviv offices. And taking a look now at our programming for tonight on JBS for Thursday, May the 10th. At 7 o'clock, it's Talmud Study with Rabbi Mordechai Becker. At 8, author Francine Klagsbrun talks about her biography, Lioness, Golda Meir and the Nation of Israel, from the Jewish Historical Society of Fairfield County in Stamford. At 9, Mark Golub's backstage meeting with actress Tova Feldshuh, star of the 2003 one-woman play My Name is Golda, on the life of the late Prime Minister. At 10, Rabbi Ethan Tucker of Mechon Hadar talks about the change in the perceptions of American and Israeli Jews with Gary Rosenblatt of the Jewish Week. And coming up right after this newscast at 6:30, Mark Golub speaks with op-ed columnist for the New York Times, Bret Stephens, about the recent announcement by President Trump of the U.S. withdrawal from the Iran deal. And that's the JBS News Update for Thursday, May the 10th, 2018. I'm Teisha Bader.